Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming back to the Love and Betrayal channel. Today, I have a new and quite interesting story to share with you. The first time I saw him, he was sitting near platform 4, still silent, watching. A golden retriever, older by the look of his graying muzzle and tired eyes. His fur was matted, his tail unmoving, his expression unreadable. I almost walked past him. It was a cold November afternoon. Wind tugged at my scarf, my hands buried deep in my coat pockets as I pulled my luggage behind me. But something made me stop. Maybe it was the way he stared at the incoming train. Like he was waiting for someone who hadn't arrived yet, someone who never did. I had just returned to my hometown after 10 years of staying away. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I'd promised myself I wouldn't come back, not after what happened with Michael. But promises made in pain rarely hold, especially when your mother calls and says, "Your father is gone, the funeral's Friday." And so I came back, not for closure, not for healing, just obligation. I didn't expect to feel anything at all. And yet, as I stood there, watching this dog, my heart ached in a strange, familiar way. I knelt down slowly, careful not to frighten him. "Hey, buddy," I whispered. His ears twitched, but he didn't move. I extended my hand and he sniffed it briefly before turning back to the tracks. It was as if I didn't matter, as if he was still hoping the next train would bring someone else. I looked around. No collar, no leash, just a threadbare red bandana tied loosely around his neck. A tag, barely hanging on, swung in the breeze. I reached for it. Max. Just that. No number, no address. Just a name. The station attendant noticed me crouching. "Don't mind him," he said, walking over. "He's been here for years." "Years?" I echoed, startled. "Yep, comes in the morning, sits there till evening. Rain or snow, he stays, then he disappears. Comes back the next day like clockwork." "Whose dog is he?" The man shrugged. "No one knows. Folks say he used to come here with his owner. Some guy who took the 5:10 train every evening. One day the guy never came back." I swallowed. "What happened to him? Car accident, maybe. Or just left town. Depends on who you ask, but the dog, he never stopped waiting." He tipped his cap and walked away. And I stood there staring at Max. This dog, this loyal, quiet shadow, was waiting for someone who was never coming home. And for reasons I couldn't explain, that broke me more than my father's death ever could. That night I couldn't sleep. My childhood home was too quiet, too filled with the echoes of who we used to be. My mother wandered like a ghost. The hallway still had pictures of Michael and me, smiling, unaware of the storm that would tear us apart. I stared at the ceiling, and all I could see was Max's eyes. How long had he waited? How many cold nights had he curled up under that platform? Why hadn't anyone taken him home? The next morning I went back. Platform 4. There he was. Same spot, same posture, same hope in his eyes. I brought a sandwich this time, turkey and cheese. I sat beside him and held it out. He looked at it, then at me. For a long moment, nothing. Then gently he took it from my hand. And that was the beginning. Each day I returned. Sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit. We didn't speak, obviously. But silence has a language, and Max was fluent in it. He never barked, never begged, never moved until the 5:10 train came and went. And every time it did, I saw his eyes dim just a little more. Hope dying, piece by piece. And yet he stayed. Um, you don't sense, and he stammered bad. Like he didn't know how not to. By the end of the week, I found myself looking forward to seeing him more than I did my own family. He was a constant in a town that had changed too much. A living statue of loyalty in a world that forgot how to wait. One afternoon, I stayed after the train passed. Max laid his head on my lap. For the first time. And something inside me cracked open. Because I, too, had waited. Waited for Manuel to come home from his shift and say he loved me. Waited for my father to admit he was wrong. Waited for life to fix itself. But no one ever came. Just like Max. We were both waiting for ghosts. That night, I made a decision. I returned to the station after dark. Max wasn't there. I waited. Then I saw him, emerging from behind the maintenance shed, limping slightly, dragging an old blanket in his teeth. I followed him. He walked slowly, cautiously, to the alley behind the florist's shop, curled into the blanket, laid his head down. He had made a home from scraps. I stood there, tears stinging my eyes. Then I whispered, "Come with me." His ears perked up. I knelt, held out my hand. And this time, without hesitation, he came. I didn't plan on keeping him. That night, as Max followed me down Maple Street, his steps slow but steady, my only thought was, just one night, just somewhere warm. The town was quiet. Street lamps cast soft halos across the pavement. Leaves blew across sidewalks like memories chasing footsteps. And beside me, Max walked as if he'd always known the way, as if he wasn't astray, but returning home. When I opened the gate to my mother's house, I half expected him to stop, to hesitate, but he didn't. He walked right through. No fear, no resistance, just quiet trust. Inside, I laid out an old blanket in the laundry room, placed a bowl of water nearby, and whispered, "Just for tonight, okay?" He looked up at me, blinked slowly, and rested his head on his paws. That was the first night I slept. Deeply, without ghosts pressing on my chest, without waking in cold sweat from memories I never asked for. Just silence, and the steady rhythm of something finally whole in the next room. The next morning, my mother raised an eyebrow when she saw him. "He followed me," I said simply. She didn't question it. She looked at Max, then at me, and for the first time since I arrived, she smiled. "Your father would have liked him." I said nothing. But deep down, I knew my father would have complained about the fur, the smell, the inconvenience. But Michael would have loved him. I took Max back to the station that day, just to see, just to test. Would he stop, sit, wait? He didn't. He glanced at the platform once, briefly, and then turned back to me. And in that tiny, weightless moment, I knew he had chosen. Not a new station, not a new train. Me. Over the next few days, we settled into a rhythm. I took Max to the vet. He was underweight, a little arthritic, but otherwise healthy. "No microchip?" I asked. The vet shook her head. "None. You're all he has now." The words hit harder than I expected, because I wasn't sure I had anything, or anyone either, until now. At home, Max followed me like a shadow. He waited outside the bathroom door, sat beside me when I worked through funeral documents, laid at the foot of my bed, and stared at the window until I turned off the light. He never asked for affection. He simply stayed. And in doing so, he began to fill the cracks inside me that I didn't even realize were still bleeding. One afternoon, Mia, my niece, came to visit. She was 6, bright-eyed, curious. When she saw Max, she squealed, "Jackie!" and threw her arms around him. Max froze at first. Then slowly, gently, he leaned into her. That night, Mia told me, "He's a hero dog." I laughed. "Why is that?" "Because he saved you." I looked at Max. His eyes were closed, his breathing soft, but somehow I knew he heard her. And maybe she was right. Still, the town had questions. The barista at the cafe asked, "Hey, isn't that the station dog?" The grocery clerk whispered, "He finally went home with someone." The florist left a note in my mailbox. "I hope he brings you the peace he never found there." People had seen him, known him, but no one had claimed him. And now he had chosen. Not because I was special, but because I stayed. I saw him, and maybe, just maybe, that was all he ever wanted. But peace never lasts long in towns like mine. Not when the past hangs in every corner. Not when the name Michael still opens wounds people pretend are scars. One evening, I found an envelope slipped under the door. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. A man at the train station, leaning against the railing, smiling. And at his feet, Max, younger, brighter-eyed, ears perked. But the man was Michael. I sat down, stared at the photo. My hands shook. The caption on the back read, "He waited for him, but maybe he was waiting for you too." I didn't recognize the handwriting, but suddenly everything made sense. Max hadn't been waiting for a stranger. He had been waiting for Michael. And when Michael never came back, he waited for the next best thing. The person who once held Michael's heart. Me. I stared at the photo until the edges curled under my fingers. Michael, standing exactly where Max used to sit, same platform, same posture, same look in his eyes, like he was waiting for something just out of reach. But the image that pierced through me wasn't Michael's face. It was Max, younger, healthier, tail mid-wag, looking up at Michael like the whole world lived in that man. And now he was looking at me the same way. I didn't sleep that night. The memory of the photo, paired with the handwriting, rattled around in my chest like loose glass. I pulled out the box, Michael's box, the one I never opened, the one I packed away the day he didn't come home. Inside, a watch, a worn leather notebook, a few concert tickets, and a train pass. I flipped through the pages of the notebook, mostly scribbles, ideas, jokes, half-written lyrics. But on the last page, I found something else. "If something happens to me, don't let him wait alone." And beneath it, "Her name is Claire. She'll know what to do." Claire. My name. Written in the handwriting I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. I dropped the notebook. Max lifted his head from the foot of the bed, ears twitching. "You knew?" I whispered. He stared. And for the first time, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a story that had started long before I arrived. The next day, I went back to the station. Not out of habit, out of need. I sat on the same bench Michael once leaned on. I looked out at the empty tracks and tried to remember the last time we spoke without anger. It had been months before his death. We fought over something small, something stupid, and when I left, I swore I wouldn't call again. Then the accident came. A phone call. A funeral. A silence too heavy to ever break. But Max never stopped waiting. The station attendant approached me slower this time. You again, he said gently. I need to ask you something, I said. I showed him the photo. Do you remember this man? He squinted, then nodded. He used to come here every day, took the 510 for work, always had that dog with him, real friendly pair. Did you ever see him after? The man shook his head. One day just never showed up, but the dog did. He paused. Every single day? I swallowed. And no one ever came looking for him? Some woman once, he said, maybe 2 weeks after, brown hair, short coat. She asked about the dog, about the man. Did she say her name? He frowned. No, but she cried when she saw the dog sitting alone. That wasn't me. So who was she? That night, I opened the notebook again. The handwriting wasn't just for me, it was a message, a breadcrumb. Claire will know what to do. But I didn't. I had no idea what he meant until Max brought me something. I was washing dishes when I heard the scratching. He nudged something toward me with his nose, something buried deep in the corner of the hallway closet. A shoebox. Inside, more photos, letters, a key, and a note addressed to me. With trembling hands, I unfolded it. Claire, I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. I adopted Max without telling you because I knew you'd say no. You were already pulling away. You had that look in your eyes, the one that said you were halfway gone. But Max grounded me. He was the one thing I knew how to love, even when I didn't know how to love you right. He kept me steady, and I think he knew I'd mess this up, knew you'd be the one to find him in the end. If you're reading this, thank you for not letting him wait forever. He's yours now. Maybe he always was. Michael, I couldn't breathe. I sank to the floor. Max curled beside me. He licked the tears off my cheek without a sound. Michael had left us both with nothing but silence. But in that silence was Max. The connection, the bridge, the love that neither of us knew how to hold back then. And somehow, in losing him, I had gained something pure, something loyal, something unbreakable. That night, I didn't cry. I sat on the porch with Max, the stars overhead like tiny pieces of memory, and I whispered, I think I finally understand. He looked up at me. No bark, no ag, just that look. Like the wait was over, like we were home. The box sat on my lap for hours before I had the courage to open it again. Michael's handwriting danced across the letter like a ghost from another life, too familiar, too foreign. I read the last line over and over. He's yours now, maybe he always was. How could someone you lost still send you something so alive? The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I had to find her. The woman the station attendant mentioned, the one who came asking about Max, the one who stood in the same place I did, staring into silence and waiting for someone who never came. Maybe she knew something I didn't. Maybe she carried a part of Michael that I had never seen. The problem was I had no idea where to start. No name, no description, just brown hair and a short coat. Helpful. I stood on the platform again, Max beside me. This time I didn't look at the tracks. I looked at the faces, the workers, the passersby, the elderly man who swept leaves from the corners. Someone had to remember more than that. And then I saw her. Not the woman, but someone else. The florist. The one who left the note in my mailbox. I ran across the street, Max trotting behind me. Excuse me, I said, catching my breath. She looked up, startled, and then her face softened. You found the photo. I blinked. You sent it, Ma? She nodded. I used to see them, Michael and the dog. Every day, he'd buy a sunflower for someone. My chest tightened. For me, I said. He used to bring them home every Friday. She smiled gently. He always looked nervous, like he was trying to get something right. That sounded like him. She continued, after he stopped coming, I saw the dog, alone, sitting in the same spot. I thought about calling someone, but something about the way he waited, I don't know, it felt sacred. Who else came looking for him? I asked. Her face darkened slightly. A woman, 2 weeks later, quiet, distant. She didn't say her name, just asked if I had seen the dog recently. She looked heartbroken. My voice trembled. What did she look like? Brown hair, freckles, maybe mid-30s. She had a camera. A camera? That narrowed it down. I thanked her, left my number, and walked back to the car with Max. Someone had been grieving, too. Someone who cared enough to look for Max. Someone who might hold the final pieces to this story. That evening, I dug deeper. Michael's social media had long been deactivated, but I still had an old email tied to his cloud account. I tried logging in. No luck. But then I remembered Michael had always used our anniversary as his password for everything. I tried. It worked. My breath caught as I scrolled through the cloud. Photos, hundreds of them, of Max, of us, of sunsets, of flowers. And then one day, a photo entitled Her. I clicked. There were 5 photos, all taken from a distance, a woman sitting on the station bench, feeding Max a treat, petting him, smiling. She didn't look like someone passing by. She looked like someone trying to remember something she had once belonged to. In the last photo, she was crying. Max sat beside her. And then timestamp? 3 days after Michael's death. I stared at the screen, my heart in my throat. Who was she? Why had Michael photographed her? Why save them in a private folder? I searched through the metadata, and there it was. Her watermark, emilygracephotography.com. My fingers flew. I found her site, still active. Nature shots, city portraits, one tab titled Grief and Waiting, and in it, a photo of Max titled The One Who Stayed. I clicked contact, typed a message. Hi, Emily. I believe you knew Max, and maybe Michael too. If you're open to it, I'd like to meet. I think we're part of the same story. Claire. I hit send and waited. The reply came the next morning. Simple. I've been waiting for this message for years. Name the time and place. I'll be there. Emily. We met at the cafe across from the station. Max sat at my feet, tail thumping against the floor every time someone passed by. And then she walked in, just like the florist described, brown hair, freckles, camera bag slung across her shoulder. She smiled when she saw Max, and he wagged his tail. Slow, gentle, like recognition, like relief. We didn't order drinks. We just sat. And Emily singing, and Emily said, I was in love with him, but he didn't love me back. I blinked. You knew Michael. She nodded. We met at a photo exhibit, hit it off, started working on a project together. He never mentioned you, not until I asked him why he always left at 5. My stomach twisted. He told me, she continued, that he had someone he'd never stopped loving, someone he broke, and that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't replace her. Me. It was me. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. I was going to give this to him the day I found out he was gone. Inside, a small silver tag, engraved with Max's name and mine. Max, if found, please return to Claire. My hands shook. He knew, Emily said. He knew Max belonged to you, even if you didn't know it yet. I cried, openly. Max rested his head on my knee. Emily didn't look away. She just said, he didn't get everything right, but he tried, Claire. He really did. I nodded, because somehow I believed her. Max was never meant to wait alone, and neither was I. It took me 3 days to gather the courage. 3 days of staring at the box Emily gave me. 3 days of rereading Michael's note. 3 days of walking Max down the same street every morning, hoping I'd find clarity hidden in the cracks of the sidewalk or the branches above. But it didn't come from the world outside. It came from the quiet inside me. The kind of quiet that only settles after grief stops screaming and starts whispering. I stood at the door of the old apartment. Ours. The one Michael and I had shared 5 years ago, before everything fell apart. Before missed anniversaries, before silence became our only conversation, before I told him I needed space and never came back. The building manager had let me in after I showed him proof of the lease that still had my name buried in the archived system. Unit 302. The door opened with a soft creak, like it too had been waiting. Dust hung in the air like old memories refusing to settle. The furniture was gone, the walls bare. But the moment I stepped in, I could still feel us there. Michael making bad coffee in the kitchen, me curled up on the couch with a book, the window open, music playing, our legs tangled under a cheap throw blanket, and then the sound of claws tapping softly against the wooden floor. Max, he didn't hesitate. He walked in like he'd been here 100 times, like his body remembered even when my mind had forgotten. He stopped in the middle of the room, sat, looked around, then looked at me. And I swear, he was saying, we came back. I knelt beside him. Is this what you needed? I whispered. His eyes were soft, still knowing. And for the first time since Michael died, I didn't feel haunted. I felt held. In the far corner near the window, I noticed something strange. A faint outline on the floor. I knelt down and peeled back the warped floorboard. Inside, a small cloth bundle carefully tucked away. I opened it. Inside were 2 things. A collar and a letter. The collar was Max's, old, worn, the name barely legible. The letter in Michael's handwriting. Claire, if you're reading this, then I guess you came back. And if you came back, maybe it means you forgave me. Or maybe you just needed to remember. Max was never just a dog. He was the part of me I didn't know how to show you. The loyal part, the quiet part, the part that stayed when everything else fell apart. I thought I lost you when I lost your trust, but maybe you were always stronger than the space I left behind. If he's with you now, then you're not alone, and neither is he. Thank you for letting him wait for me, and for being the one who finally came back. Michael. I sat there on the floor, the letter trembling in my hands, Max's head resting gently on my thigh. The apartment was silent, but my heart wasn't. It was full of sorrow, of healing, of something so honest it didn't need words anymore. That evening, I took Max back to the train station one last time. Not because he needed to wait, but because I needed to say goodbye to the version of myself who had once walked away. We sat on the same bench. The 5:10 train came, then left. And Max? He didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't watch. He laid down, rolled onto his side, and sighed. Like he finally understood. He was done waiting. And so was I. On the walk home, I stopped by the florist shop. Sunflowers, I said. For a memory, for a promise kept. She wrapped them gently. I placed them in the center of my dining table, a place where silence once ruled, now filled with small pause, quiet forgiveness, and the warm scent of something almost like hope. That night, I curled up on the couch, Max beside me. I opened Michael's notebook again, reread the scribbled ideas, the old song lyrics, the quote he underlined twice. Sometimes the things that stay silent the longest are the ones that love the loudest. I looked at Max and whispered, "Thank you, Aim, for waiting." He didn't move, but his tail thumped twice against the floor. Soft, certain, final. They say healing doesn't happen all at once. It comes slowly, quietly, in moments so gentle you barely notice them. A morning without tears, a laugh that doesn't catch in your throat, a silence that no longer feels like abandonment. For me, healing came in fur. In paws resting beside my feet, in the soft thud of Max's tail against the hardwood floor every time I entered the room. The apartment began to feel like home again. Not the same home it was with Michael, but a new version, less haunted, more honest. Max had claimed his spots. The rug under the coffee table, the sun-drenched corner by the bookshelf, the side of the bed I hadn't touched in years. He didn't ask for anything. He simply existed beside me, a quiet presence, a living echo of someone I had loved and lost. It was a Sunday when the letter arrived. From the railway authority. I opened it carefully, expecting some sort of forgotten fine or administrative notice. But inside was a note. Dear Ms. Claire, we wanted to inform you that the platform area near Track 4 is being renovated and modernized. During preparations, our team discovered a hidden engraving beneath the bench where the dog, Max, was often seen waiting. It reads simply, "The last train home for M. We assume it was placed there by your late partner, as his name appears in employee records. Please let us know if you'd like to visit the site before renovation begins." My hands trembled. The last train home. That was Michael. That was us. That was Max. I visited the station that afternoon. The platform was cordoned off with tape and signs that read, "Construction begins Monday." But one of the workers recognized me. "You're the lady from the bench," and he said. "And the dog, right?" I nodded. He smiled and lifted the tape. "Go on and take your time." The platform looked the same, but emptier, quieter. No waiting souls, no trains passing. Just memory and hanging in the air like dust in a beam of light. I walked over to the bench, and there it was, carved into the underside of the wooden slats. The last train home M. I knelt, traced the letters with my fingers. Max sat beside me, unmoving. "This was always your place, huh?" I whispered. He looked at me, then at the tracks. No longing in his eyes, no age, just peace. Like the chapter had closed. That evening, I brought the sunflowers again, placed them on the bench, tied a red ribbon around the stems, like the one Max used to wear. And when I turned to leave, Mao followed. No hesitation, no backward glance, no more waiting. We stopped by the shelter the next day, not for Max, for me. I had filled out a volunteer application weeks ago, but never submitted it. Now I did. The woman at the front desk asked, "Why now?" And I said simply, "Because I know what it feels like to wait for someone who never comes, and I know what it feels like to finally be found." She smiled and welcomed me in. Days turned into weeks. Max became a favorite at the shelter, calm, patient, gentle with every frightened pup that arrived. The other volunteers called him the grandfather. He'd lay beside the anxious ones, rest his head on their paws, wait with them, like he once waited for me, like he remembered what it meant to feel abandoned and to be loved again. One evening, Mia came to visit. She had grown taller, more thoughtful. She looked around the shelter wide eyed, then knelt beside Max and whispered, "You're a hero." He licked her cheek. She turned to me. "Do you think dogs go to heaven?" I paused, then said, "I think Max already found his." That night, I sat on the porch with Max curled beside me, our lives no longer marked by waiting, but by presence. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Michael, for the last gift you ever gave me." Max lifted his head, looked up too, and I swear, in that moment, I felt Michael smiling somewhere just beyond the stars. I don't go to the train station anymore because I don't have to. The last train has come and gone, and what it left behind wasn't grief. It was love. A love that stayed. A love that waited. A love that never needed words to be real. Just pause and presence and the sound of one last tail thumping in the dark. It was a rainy Wednesday when he arrived. Tiny, soaked, shaking in a crate, dropped at the shelter's front door before sunrise. No note, no explanation. Just a pup with eyes too big for his face and ears that flopped with every breath. The moment I saw him, something twisted in my chest because he looked like Max. Not exactly. His fur was darker, his tail curled differently, but the eyes, those eyes held the same kind of silence. The kind that doesn't cry out, the kind that waits. Max walked over cautiously. The pup froze. They stared at each other, two creatures from different lifetimes, carrying the same kind of broken. Then Max lay it down slowly, gently, and the puppy crawled toward him, pressed into his chest. That was it. No growls, no whimpers, just acceptance. Like Max had looked at this scared little thing and whispered, "I know, you're safe now." We named him Leo. The staff joked it meant lion, but to me it meant fighter. He was timid for days. Wouldn't eat unless Max sat beside him. Wouldn't sleep unless he was curled into Max's fur. Wouldn't make a sound until Mia came to visit. Mia had been visiting the shelter more lately. She loved helping feed the animals, read to the dogs on Saturdays, helped organize supplies with the other volunteers. But when she saw Leo, she froze. "He looks like Max did in that photo," she whispered, pointing to the picture I kept on the wall of my little office. Michael and Max at the station, back when the world still made sense. I nodded. "He does. Is he staying here?" "For now." She tilted her head. "Can I hold him?" I lifted Leo into her arms. He wriggled at first, unsure, then stilled. And for the first time, he wagged his tail. That night, Max curled into his usual corner by the window. Leo curled beside him. I watched them from the hallway. Two lives, one old one just beginning, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the desperate kind that comes from waiting, but the kind that grows quietly in a room where nothing is expected and everything is possible. Over the next few weeks, Leo began to bloom. He chased falling leaves in the shelter yard, learned to fetch, started sleeping through the night without Max constantly beside him. But they were still inseparable. And Max? He had never looked prouder. Like he wasn't just guarding anymore. He was passing something on. One afternoon, I took them both to the lake. It was the first warm day in weeks. The water sparkled. The air smelled like soil and blooming grass. Leo bounced through the shallows, splashing like a child. Max sat beside me, calm, observant. I leaned against him. "Can you believe it?" I whispered. "We're the ones people come to for healing now." He nudged my hand, and I smiled. Because even in his silence, Max always had a way of answering. That night, as I sorted through the donation pile at the shelter, I found something unexpected. A red bandana. New, soft, still folded neatly with the tag on. I stared at it for a long time, then walked to Leo's crate. He perked up. I tied the bandana loosely around his neck. He wagged his tail. And Max? He gave one approving thump of his tail on the floor, like he understood what I was doing. Like he agreed. Each later, I called Emily. Told her everything. She laughed through the phone. Of course Max found a protege. He's always had good taste. Then she paused. Maybe this is the next chapter. What do you mean? I asked. She took a deep breath. You healed because Max waited for you. Now, maybe Leo is here because you're the one meant to wait this time, to help him find his person. I looked over at the two dogs curled up together on the rug, and I knew she was right. But this time, the weight didn't feel heavy. It didn't ache. It felt like promise. Because Leo wasn't alone. He had Max. He had me. He had time. 1 week later, a woman walked into the shelter, young, nervous, holding a flyer for Leo she'd seen online. Her name was Rachel. I just, I don't know if I'm ready, she said. I lost my last dog 2 years ago. I didn't think I could ever love another. I didn't push. I just introduced her to Leo. He walked over, sniffed, sat. Then, and he did something none of us expected. He licked her hand once, then nudged his head under her arm and curled up in her lap. Rachel cried. So did I. And in the background, Max watched from the doorway, tail still, eyes calm, like a mentor watching his student take his first steps. Leo went home that evening, not just adopted, chosen. That night, it rained again. Max curled beside me on the couch, head heavy on my knee. I stroked his fur and whispered, "You did it again. You waited, and now another soul gets to live because you stayed." He didn't respond, just sighed, content, peaceful. And I knew this was what love looked like. Not just the kind that holds on, but the kind that lets go. Max began slowing down not long after Leo left. Not in a sudden heartbreaking way. No drama, no sharp decline. Just a gentle fading, like a candle that knew its light had done its job. He still greeted me every morning with a soft wag, still followed me into the kitchen, still curled up on the porch during golden afternoons as if guarding something only he could see. But his walks grew shorter, his naps longer, and his eyes all hard and like he was already halfway somewhere else. I brought him to the vet. They did tests, gentle hands, kind eyes. Chronic kidney failure, they said, not uncommon for his age. He's not in pain yet, the vet told me. He's just tired. I nodded, trying to hold the crack in my voice together with trembling lips. Then I want to give him the most peaceful days I can. And we did. I took time off from the shelter, turned off my phone more often, canceled appointments that didn't matter. Every moment became deliberate. Mornings were slow and full of sunlight. Evenings were quiet, filled with stories told out loud just for him. I cooked chicken the way he liked, let him sleep on the bed again. And each night I whispered, "Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for choosing me. You don't have to stay if you're tired." He'd nudge me gently, as if to say, "I know." One afternoon, Mia came over with a drawing. It was Max, lying on the bench at the station, but this time, he wasn't alone. Next to him was a man, Michael, and in the sky above them, Leo was playing into the clouds. "I think they'll meet again," she said simply. I couldn't respond. I just pulled her into my arms and let myself feel every bit of that ache. Because it was beautiful, and because it was true. On a Wednesday morning, 1 year exactly since Max followed me home from the train station, I woke up to silence, not empty silence. Stillness. He was curled up at the foot of the bed. Peaceful, still gone. I pressed my forehead to his and whispered, "You made it, my boy. The wait is over. You brought me home, and now you get to go." We buried him under the old maple tree in the shelter's garden, the same spot where he used to lie while the other dogs played around him. Mia helped plant sunflowers around the base. Rachel came, holding Leo, who sat silently beside the grave as if he knew, as if he was saying goodbye to his teacher, his hero, his father in every way that mattered. I placed the red bandana on the soil and a small wooden plaque that simply read, "The one who waited, the one who loved, the one who stayed." The days after were hard. The house felt quieter, even though Leo visited often. I'd still check the corner of the living room, still expect to hear that familiar sigh from the porch. Grief is strange that way. It doesn't just miss, it echoes. One evening, I sat alone on the bench by the shelter, watching the sun dip below the trees. And for the first time, I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled because I could feel him, not in a mystical way, but in the breeze, in the warmth, in the peace he left behind. He had waited long enough. Now it was my turn to carry what he gave me. I returned to the train station once more, just to sit. No dogs, no ghosts, just me. The bench was still there, newly painted but unchanged. I placed my hand on the wooden slats and whispered, "We made it, Max. You took the last train home." And I swear, in the hush of the platform, in the soft screech of distant tracks, I heard it, a quiet thump, like a tale, like goodbye, like forever, the end.